Welcome back, thanks for joining me. Well, it's -5 out here today, but that can't stop us. I'm really hoping to get the body on in this video, and for that we need to do any last minute drilling of holes for pipe runs, filling up our fluids and anything else we can think of before that body goes on and restricts all our access. Let's see what we've got to do. Okay, so I'm hoping to get the fuel sender in, not because it's necessary before the body goes on, but it does save us sort of leaning in, crouching down and trying to get in there. Also, it's easier to measure the depth of the fuel tank, which we need to adjust the fuel sender before the body goes on. So we're going to be doing that. I need to be making up a wire. I've got some wire here to go with the little connector, which I'm going to plug into the ram here. And then I'm going to just lay the wire out nicely, probably coming out the back here, and keep it, maybe zip tie it to this, because this is not touched by the body, ready until the body goes on, because then the wires are going to need to sort of go into about there where the kind of system board is. So I need to do that, and then we've got fluids to fill, so diff fluid in here. So I'm going to undo the filler hole here and fill it up until it is level or just dribbles out slightly, and then do that up. And I've got to put some fluid into the gearbox, and then also I'm going to be using these cables and connectors here, and I'm going to just be extending them and lay them nicely. Now you can actually get your hand really quite easily into all this area from above and below once the body's on, but I'm just going to attach it and have the wire coming out and have it in some, you know, corrugated tubing, protective tubing, and I'm going to see if I can zip tie it to somewhere handy, maybe on this hole here. And likewise with the speedo sort of sensor connector there as well. This cable here, by the way, is not used, so I'm going to just put an end over that to keep any muck out of it and make sure it's zipped tied out the way. But under this orange cap here is the connector, and then that needs to be brought out along here. We'll tuck it under this tab there, and maybe zip tie it to here, and then that can go out up to the top, and then into it actually comes out quite nicely through a hole if you make it next to my heater section, if you like, my heater unit. So that doesn't have far to go by the time the heater is kind of hanging about here, and it just goes straight into the bulkhead and connects into there. So that's all good. We'll check the oil level while we're at it. Got cloths out, but that's obviously easy to do without the body, and that's I think that's all we need to do. I've already done extra holes, I think. I've attached this P-clip here. This P-clip goes up on and fixes to the actual body itself, and that's all good down there. And I've already drilled a P-clip on the actual body, which is about here to hold the pipe at this kind of angle. So no more P-clips, I don't think, need to be fitted for any pipe runs down there. But I'll just double check, and I think that'll put us in good shape to maybe get the body on, but I'll let you know if I think of anything else. First job is the actuator wiring. So I've been informed by AK that red is positive, yellow is negative. I did just check because there is a black wire that splices into the red wire there, so I just want to make sure that wasn't an earth or something. So made up my connector this end with the relevant connections, and I made the decision to bring the wire kind of in the same route as the old handbrake cable. So I'm actually going to make use of this little hole here, if you like, and I'm going to be poking through the wire through here, which is quite handy. and then it will come up and rest against the rear bulkhead here. And the old handbrake used to be just zip tied in a couple of places, so just drill a couple of tiny little holes through the back of the bulkhead and zip tie the cable flat up against it, and then that way it'll be able to come through through a grommet into all the electronics. So I'm just going to finish that up, and I think that'll be a good run there. Got all the necessary shrink wrap, because who knows what kind of gunk and stuff is going to be thrown up there, so just to prolong the life. So that's good. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so I just want to briefly mention I just buzzed a 4mm hole through the bottom of this plate here, just to hold this cable well out of the way of the ram going in and out. That black section, large black section, doesn't actually move. It's just a narrower piston in and out from here. But that's all tucked out of the way nicely. And all protected, and I'm just going to leave it hanging there while the body goes on. Now moving to the speed sensor. I've extended the wires on my speed sensor. I don't think there's a positive and negative. I think either wire sends out the pulse. However, based on the reverse light having a black cable, because this one was purple and yellow, we're going to say purple is kind of the sensor wire, or the live wire, even though there's no sort of electricity or anything. It's sending out the pulse there, up the purple, I reckon. So I've coloured that red. Anyway, so I'm just going to plug that into here and tuck it round this tab, zip tie it to here, and then it's just going to have a short run. I'm just going to leave it hanging. It'll just have a short run into the back of the dash. And if you remember, we don't use, I think it's the black and yellow wire to the heater. So I've actually used that wire and its connection in the 11-pin connector. So I'll just be plugging this wire into the 11-pin connector on the wiring loom that we install into the car, so that it can easily be plugged in and out. Anyway, it'll make sense when I get to that stage. Okay, so the next job we have is this fuel sender piece of equipment, and the thing to do is first measure the depth of your fuel tank, and I've got about 180. So you can see here 180 with a pivot measurement of 77. The pivot measurement is from the bottom of the flange to this point there. So from bottom of flange to this point there, I've measured 77. I'm now going to do up the nuts, and then I can measure a radius length apparently for where the float goes. And then we can cut all these bars to length. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure carefully. It's a dead easy. Once you've cut everything to length, then you just slide the float on with these kind of locking springs, and then you've got 6 bolts just to go straight on. The only thing to note is there is a baffle in here, or a couple of baffles. There's certainly one in about this direction, so you want to make sure that your float is not going to be hitting that. So I've angled it in this kind of direction, but also I've angled it away from the filler, so there isn't fuel just splashing down, maybe affecting the float orientation, etc. So it's pretty much kind of over here, which is good. So it's got free rein to go up and down. So that's it. So I'm just going to tighten these gently. Now please note that there's not much thread put through here, so you don't want to be tightening too hard, but obviously tight enough that you don't get fuel splashing, kind of leaking out, if you like, through this cork. If you do have a problem, then you could get rid of that, and the only fuel safe sealant that I know of is called blue Hylamar. So you could put a smidge of blue Hylamar all the way around and tighten it down, which I may do if that cork gives up or doesn't do a good enough job. And that's the fuel sender. Alright, so all that's left to do is test the brakes. Do test them now before the body goes on. It's much easier to go around, see any leaks, just nip up any kind of loose fittings, etc. So do that now. Make some holes in the body for the fuel tank. filler entry and also where the gear stick pokes up. I normally measure where the tunnel kind of cinches in and then expands out again, because that shape is replicated on the chassis, so you can just measure from there and then put the measurements on the body and make the hole for the gear stick. And that's about it. The final thing is AK then inform you to put a bead of silicon sealant or tiger seal around certain areas on the chassis before dropping the body on. So that's a good idea. I have used foam before. You have to think though if the foam will compress enough, because if it's just a few mil higher and you've made your holes for the exhaust exits, etc., then they're going to need to be just tidied up, because it'll just be a touch higher, I guess, because the foam is really good. It does undulate and fill up all the holes underneath the body when it's dropped on, but it doesn't actually compress as much as you think, so just bear that in mind. So on this one, I'm actually going to use sealant for the first time. So I'm hoping my friends and neighbours that I get around to help me lift the body on are understanding enough just to wait 5 or 10 minutes while I put that bead of sealant on. Otherwise it'll skin up and go off and dry. So that's about it. Thanks for joining me for this video. Hopefully there's something interesting in it. Next time the body will be on, we'll be crossing our fingers that the alternator misses the side and that we can get the headers in. I'll see you again.